My name is Emma Walker. I'm 31 years old, living and working in Austin, Texas, a city that's known for its live music festivals and sunny summer days. I work as a healthcare consultant at a community health center. I love my job. I love helping people improve their lives. I never thought I'd fall into a real-life fairy tale. Until I met Nathan Walker. Nathan, then 34, was a college professor of engineering. He was sweet, smart, and most importantly, very respectful. Or at least, that's what I believed at the time. We met at a professional conference in Austin. A handshake, a small smile, a deep look, and it all just clicked. Nathan was unlike any other man I'd ever known. He listened to me talk about my dreams, my career, the little things that made me happy. We dated for almost 2 years before he proposed. One June evening, under the warm yellow lights of a small Italian restaurant, Nathan got down on one knee and asked, "Emma, are you willing to spend the rest of your life with me?" My tears glistened under the lights. I nodded without thinking. I loved him. I believed that, with Nathan, I could be myself and be loved completely. Our wedding was held at a lakeside resort on the outskirts of Austin. An elegant white lace wedding dress, bouquets of fragrant lavender, a large number of guests, mostly acquaintances from both sides of the family. Nathan's family, the Walkers, was a prestigious family in the area. Robert Walker, his father, was a veteran lawyer. Margaret Walker, his mother, owned a chain of prestigious art galleries. On the surface, they were very friendly and warm. They hugged me from the first time they met. "Welcome to the Walker family." Those words, at that time, were like honey that penetrated my heart. I believed that I was truly lucky to have such a loving family. Immediately after the wedding, gentle advice began to appear. "Margaret gave me a book on home economics, just for reference, dear. Robert suggested that we consider having Emma reduce her workload to focus on building a family." Zoe, Nathan's younger sister, giggled, "Sister Emma, from now on you will become the new face of the Walker family." At that time, I just laughed it off, thinking that everyone was just concerned. Little did I know, those were the first steps in turning me into the ideal wife they desired. During our honeymoon, Nathan gently asked me, "Have you thought about taking a break from work so we can start planning a family?" I was a little taken aback. I loved my job. I wasn't ready to give it up. I replied, half jokingly, "It's not going to be long. I have a lot of plans for my career." Nathan just smiled. But that night, when I turned to him, I caught his thoughtful gaze out the window. Something had changed silently that I couldn't name. Every time we met the Walker family, the topic was always, "When are you going to have a baby? When are you going to quit your job to take care of your family?" Zoe always unintentionally reminded me, modern women are so talented, but don't forget your role as a mother. Margaret didn't hesitate to comment on the way I dressed. "Emma, you're beautiful. But Margaret thinks that married women should dress more modestly and modestly." I began to feel like a puppet in the play that the Walker family staged. Every day, I walked on a thin wire, trying to fulfill the role of the perfect daughter-in-law, while maintaining my own identity and passion. I did not deny the advice of the elders. Having a lot of experience and life experience would be good for me, at least in part. But I felt like I was being controlled, forced, and watched over, so I felt uncomfortable in the place I considered home. But the harder I tried, the more I felt like I was losing myself little by little. I began to wonder, is love strong enough to save me when invisible expectations are suffocating me? I did not know at that time that I was gradually stepping into a gilded cage. A cage that looks safe and warm. But gradually, I will discover, that is not a place to live. That is a place to be imprisoned. And the key to escape. I may not be brave enough to find it. After the honeymoon, my life with Nathan began to fall into place. On the outside, everything seemed perfect. A nice house in Hyde Park, Austin. A doting husband. A caring in-law family. But behind that shiny facade, invisible strings were wrapping around me. At first, it was gentle and soft, like a hug. But it became tighter and tighter, suffocating to the point of suffocation. Every decision in life began to have to be consulted with the Walker family. I wanted to sign up for an intensive course in mental health counseling. Margaret suggested, "How about later, when you have a more settled family?" I suggested that we go on a short trip this weekend. Robert reminded, the family is having a birthday party for Uncle James. It would be disrespectful to miss it. I want to change my style of dressing to be a little more youthful when going to work. Zoe sent me a collection of noble fashion for married women. No one gave direct orders. They just advised, suggested, shared experiences. But behind that was a hidden message. You should live like a walker. Gradually, I realized. People discussed big and small matters without asking my opinion. Nathan, who had promised to make all decisions with me, now often said, "My mother has experience. Just listen to her. My father knows the law. We'd better not go against her. Zoe only wants the best for you." I became a shadow in my own marriage. Every time I tried to speak up, the atmosphere in the family would immediately turn cold. The looks of pity, the slight shakes of the head, the half-joking, half-serious words were like knives stabbing into my heart. Emma is so sensitive these days. Modern women need to be a little softer. I remember one night when Nathan was fast asleep, I sat quietly in the living room, turned on my laptop. I opened my company email. There was a promotion offer, the position of healthcare project manager for the South Austin area. A great opportunity, a turning point in my career. I stared at the words, "Please confirm your acceptance before Friday." Just hit reply and type a yes. That was all. But I sat there, motionless. In my head, Margaret's voice rang out. A wife, a future mother, knows what her priorities are. Robert's voice, career is temporary. Family is forever. Zoe's voice, are you going to neglect your family to chase after fame? I burst into silent tears. I cried not because of the invitation. I cried because I realized that I no longer had the freedom to decide my own life. I, the girl who used to be proud and strong, who dared to pursue her passion, now trembled before just one email. I was gradually becoming the person they wanted. Gentle, resigned, knowing how to sacrifice, knowing how to give up, knowing how to be silent. A tame and invisible Emma. The next day, Margaret called me over. She sat down across from me, gently holding my hand. "Emma, I only want the best for you. You are still young. You should focus on being a mother. Work, promotion, those are just fleeting." I tried to smile. She handed me a document. I opened it. An ideal conception schedule. A list of reputable obstetricians and gynecologists that Margaret had already chosen. "I think we should start early. Children are the strongest foundation for a marriage." My hands shook. No one asked me if I wanted children right away. No one asked if I was ready. They assumed I had to follow their plan. That night, I sat alone in the dark. I stared at the wedding ring shining on my finger. How much hope, how much love had I put into this marriage? Now, it was like a beautiful handcuff, handcuffing me to the norms, the expectations, the unspoken rules. I knew that if I did nothing, sooner or later, I would disappear completely. Only a shell that the Walkers had molded to their liking. But I also knew that if I wanted my life back, I would have to fight back. And that battle would begin sooner than I thought. A week after Margaret's fertility conversation, I returned to work. On the outside, I tried to act normal. Still smiling at my colleagues. Still listening to my patients. Still writing comprehensive reports. But on the inside, I felt like everything was falling apart. It was as if an invisible crack was creeping through every minute, every conversation of the day. It was terrible that what I had to fight was not the storm outside, but from my own family. There was an invisible pressure that was always pressing down, and every day I had to brace myself against it. How long would I be able to stay strong? One Tuesday, I received an email from the center's director, Harold Davis. The subject, meeting regarding your role. An impromptu meeting. When I entered the room, I saw Harold and the head of human resources, Elaine, waiting. The atmosphere was tense. Harold coughed. "Emma, we've had some feedback about how you seem to be lacking in concentration." I was stunned. I always completed my work on time. I had never had any complaints from patients or colleagues. "Feedback from whom, sir?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Harold and Elaine glanced at each other, then evaded. "A few sources. I won't name them." I left the meeting with a heavy heart. Anonymous sources? Unfounded accusations? A trap was being set, but I couldn't see who was behind it. Until I overheard a conversation. That afternoon, as I passed the staff room, I heard whispering. The voice was familiar. Zoe, Nathan's sister. I held my breath and listened. Zoe was calling. Don't worry. I've confidently told the center that Emma is under a lot of stress and is mentally unstable. A few meetings, a few late reports are enough for HR to look into. We can't let her run around out there when the Walkers need her at home. I was stunned. Every word was like a knife stabbing straight into my heart. Zoe, the sister-in-law I once trusted. The girl who once giggled and called me the most wonderful Emma in the world. The girl who once hugged me and whispered, I wish I could find someone who loves me like Nathan loves you. It turned out, it was all an act. A sophisticated act to drag me into the cage of the perfect wife that the Walkers wanted. And Zoe, the one who tied the noose around my neck. That night, when Nathan just walked into the house, I stopped him right at the door. No more tears. No more pleading. Just the coldness of the truth. Did you know Zoe was trying to get me fired? Nathan was momentarily stunned. But he quickly regained his composure. Who told you that? Zoe would never do that. You're imagining things. I stared at him. Do you dare swear? He was silent. A silence that hurt more than 1,000 accusations. I understood. Nathan knew. He knew everything, and he was silent and complicit. Because for Nathan, as for the Walker family, a wife who stayed home, cooked, had children, served the family, that was the norm. A strong, career-minded, vocal Emma was a danger that needed to be corrected. I felt like I was in a nightmare. A nightmare where the enemy was not a stranger, but the person I had loved most deeply. That night, I packed my things. Not a word. Not a cry. I put the wedding ring on the kitchen table, where Nathan would surely see it. Then I picked up my suitcase and walked out of the house that had once been my dream home. I rented a small apartment on South Congress, Austin. Small, simple, but full of freedom. I knew the fight ahead would be long. The Walker family would not let me go easily. But now I saw clearly. If I had to choose between being alone and being tied up in a gilded cage, I would choose being alone, even if it cost me, even if I had to start over from zero. I began to think about everything that had happened before, a beautiful love, a dream job, a loving and understanding in-laws, a fairy tale wedding. I seemed to have everything that any woman could ever want. But fairy tales are not real. That beautiful life was too short, leaving me unable to recover my spirit because the things I believed in kept breaking piece by piece. In the first few days of my new apartment, I felt like a warrior who had just survived a bloody battle. Every morning, I made myself a cup of coffee. I sat and watched the sunlight fall on the bare walls. No more formal dinners. No more prying eyes. No more sweet but poisonous advice. Just me and me. But freedom did not come easily. The first week, I received a letter from the Walker family's law office. They demanded that I return all valuable wedding gifts, watches, cars, jewelry. Sign a non-disclosure agreement not to reveal anything about the Walkers' private life. Otherwise, they would take appropriate legal action. When I finished reading the letter, I burst out laughing. Not because I was happy, but because I couldn't believe how brazen they were. Not stopping there. Rumors spread quickly in the professional world. Emma Walker lost her job because she could not control her emotions. Emma was mentally unstable, unreliable in public health care projects. Some consulting contracts I had just signed were put on hold. The auxiliary project for the regional hospital was also postponed indefinitely. I knew the Walker family was behind it all. They didn't just want me to disappear from their family. They wanted me to disappear from my career, from this city. There were nights when I sat on the floor, my back against the wall. My eyes were glued to the unlit phone screen. No one called. No one asked. The feeling of loneliness tightened around me like a rough rope. I had lost the man I loved, the family I thought was mine, the work I had worked so hard to build. One morning, while cleaning out old papers, I found a handwritten letter from my mother, sent to me many years ago, when I had just graduated from college. In the letter, she wrote, "Dear Emma, wherever you are, whatever you do, never forget. You are valuable, simply because you are you. Not because of anyone's approval, not because of anyone's liking. I sat there for a long time. I read each word over and over again. Those words were like a ray of light piercing the darkness of despair. I realized, the Walker family can take away my assets. They can tarnish my reputation. But they can't take away who I am. No one has the right to define me but myself. I decided not to retreat, to stand up for myself. I wrote back to the Walker's lawyers. I'm willing to return all of my wedding gifts if they can prove that it was a written, conditional exchange. If the harassment continues, I will countersue for legal abuse and defamation. I also work with a small PR firm specializing in restoring my personal image. I attend free community health seminars. I share my professional articles on LinkedIn and Medium. I built my own website, emmawalkerhealth.com, where I write about my journey through mental health. No scandals. No need to speak out to smear anyone. Just the truth and persistence. At first, the Walkers continued to send threatening letters. But when they saw that I was not deterred, they gradually backed down. No apologies. No remorse. Just silence. A bitter silence. I understood. In their eyes, I no longer existed. And strangely enough, that was a liberating gift for me. 3 months after leaving the Walkers, I stood in front of the mirror, looking at myself in a pale blue dress, a color I had loved but had forgotten for years. What I saw? A more mature Emma. A scarred Emma, but also powerful. I was no longer the naive girl who believed that love was enough. I had learned, true love never asks you to sacrifice yourself. If someone asks you to compromise who you are, that's not love, that's control. One late fall evening, as I sat reading by the window, I received an email from a large hospital in San Antonio. They invited me to interview for a mental health care manager position. A chance to start over. A new chapter. An invitation to step out of old wounds. I closed my laptop and smiled. Time to leave the ruins. Time to live a real life. I spent almost 3 sleepless nights thinking about the email from the hospital in San Antonio. A new city. A new opportunity. A new life. But it also meant a complete break from Austin, from the past, from everything I had ever been attached to. My heart ached at the thought. I had loved this place. I had thought I would grow old in that house in Hyde Park, in Nathan's arms, in the Walker family's arms. That dream was shattered, but the fragments still cut me every time I remembered it. Just as I was considering it, Nathan texted. For the first time in months, Emma, I want to see you. Just once. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no. Wanted to slam the door on the past. Never to look back. But another part, the part that loved him, whispered, maybe, we need to say goodbye properly. I agreed. We met at a small cafe, where we had our first date. When I arrived, Nathan was already sitting there. The same eyes, the same faint smile. But between us, there was an unbridgeable distance. He spoke first. I'm sorry. I was silent. I know you've suffered a lot. I know my family was wrong. I was wrong too. I didn't protect you like I promised. I held the cup of coffee in my hand tightly, waiting. Nathan looked at me, his eyes filled with regret. I want you to come back. We'll start over. I promise. This time, I'll stand by you. Hearing those words, my heart wavered. I had dreamed of hearing these exact words. I had wished that Nathan would realize his mistakes. I had hoped that he would fight for me. But now, in this familiar cafe, I realized. Beautiful apologies cannot erase the deep wounds. Late promises cannot heal irreparable losses. I have gone too far. I have learned to live without anyone saving me. I looked straight into Nathan's eyes. Calm. No blame. No anger. Just peace. I shook my head slightly. No, Nathan. He was stunned. I continued. You said you would stand by me. But when I needed you the most, you were silent. I'm sorry. But I can't trade my freedom for a second chance. You're not the Emma of the past anymore. Nathan bowed his head, his hands clasped together, trembling. I love you. I really do. I smiled sadly. I believe you. But sometimes, love isn't enough. True love doesn't require the other person to sacrifice themselves. If you come back, you'll have to give up your dreams, give up your freedom. Give up yourself. I stood up. I took an envelope out of my bag. Inside was a signed divorce letter. I placed it in front of him. I wish you happiness, but my happiness is no longer with you. I turned and walked out of the cafe. No turning back. No tears. Just a steady step. Each step lighter, more free. The sky in Austin that day was gray, drizzling rain. But in my heart, a new spring was beginning to bloom. That night, I opened my laptop, clicked the confirm button on the email offering a job in San Antonio. A simple click. But for me, it was a declaration to the world. I choose myself. No one can imprison me anymore. Early that morning, I packed everything into my old SUV. Just a few suitcases of clothes, a few favorite books, a few memories, and a heart that had healed after so many scratches. I drove out of Austin, not looking back. The gray sky gradually gave way to bright yellow sunlight as I merged onto the interstate. My heart pounded with each mile I left. San Antonio greeted me with lush green trees and friendly smiles from strangers. I rented a small apartment near Brackenridge Park, a bedroom with large windows that flooded with light, a small balcony with a few pots of lavender, a comfortable sofa where I could sit and read every night. Not luxurious, but to me, it was a free world. In the early days, I threw myself into my hospital job, providing mental health care to cancer patients and their families. A job that requires heart and compassion. I found joy every day. A grateful squeeze of a patient's hand. A smile of relief when someone's heart was released. I was no longer Nathan's wife. I was no longer Walker's daughter-in-law. I was simply Emma Walker, an independent, compassionate person who didn't need anyone to define her worth. I learned to love the little things. Morning jogs under the shade of a tree. Quiet evenings reading by the window. Weekends exploring the quaint cafes on the Riverwalk. I made friends with kind people. Maria, my funny coworker who always invited me to yoga classes. James, the used bookstore owner who always saved me the best novels. No one knew, and no one needed to know, about my past. Here, I was able to start over. No burdens, no expectations, no constraints. One late autumn afternoon, I sat on the balcony, watching the sky dyed a brilliant orange. I suddenly realized I survived. Not just survived, but truly lived. I used to be so afraid of loneliness that I accepted losing myself. But now I understand. Loneliness does not kill you. Only betraying yourself can truly destroy you. I began to cherish a new dream. Open a mental health care center specifically for women who have experienced family crises. A place where they are not judged. A place where they can regain their self-esteem, strength, and love for themselves. I called that project Phoenix Center. Phoenix, a symbol of resurrection from ruin. Just like my journey, if there is one lesson I carry with me throughout my life, it is: no one has the right to ask you to sacrifice yourself to be accepted. True love never asks you to give up your identity. It only makes you stronger, more radiant. And if someone forces you to choose between yourself and love, choose yourself. Because you are the first and greatest love of your life. That night, I sat under the stars in San Antonio. A gentle breeze blew by. I closed my eyes. In my heart, there was no more resentment, no more regret. There was only peace, freedom, and a heart full of strength. I knew, no matter how many more challenges lay ahead, I would overcome them. Because from the ashes, I became a phoenix. And the phoenix is never afraid to fly into the fire again.